Okay, it is 6:02 on Thursday, the 6th of May. I am calling the Finance Committee to order. Okay, so Tamika, we also have Darren here. He's just experiencing some computer issues.
Okay, so it's just Dave we're missing then, right?
Dave will not be joining us this evening. He had other plans.
Okay, thank you.
So, gentlemen, there is the potential right now that as of tomorrow, tonight the school committee is meeting, and there is a potential that they will reduce our budget somewhere in the neighborhood of just under $193,000. If that happens, we are able to postpone our town meeting, and the select board is meeting tomorrow night to decide if we move the election as well. So because everything that we've done is going to go out the window. So that's the scoop of what's going on. We don't know anything more than that at this point, and we'll know more tomorrow.
So have they made the decision to move the town meeting?
No, not if by some chance the school decides not to do anything, then everything will go on as planned because we're done. If they make a change, then we have way too much work to do, and I didn't want to take a vacation day, and you can't take the time off.
Truthfully, Karen, I'm not sure we could do it one day if we wanted to.
There's always a way to do it, but so that's the scoop. So Ron has another meeting to go to. So does anyone have any questions in regards to the movement of the town meeting and the meeting tomorrow night by the select board to decide if they will move the town election? Hold on a second, Tommy. I gotta mute mine if you're gonna speak. Hold on. Go ahead.
My question is, if the town meeting gets moved up, what, is there any thought to when it might get moved up, or?
Okay, could you
Yeah, Tom.
mute yourself and I'll speak? I can't do both.
Tom, the plan right now, as of this minute, is to move it to Saturday, June 12th, to give the Finance Committee enough time to make all the changes that we would have to make. Obviously, as you're aware, we have the impact statement out there. And if they make this cut of 192,000, it completely throws off the whole impact statement. So we're gonna have to rework the lines to correct it all prior
Okay.
to the June 12th meeting. But Karen and I both felt we needed time to make those adjustments.
Yeah. So that's right now. That's not firm. So until you hear tomorrow.
I'm just wondering, because it could be a case I may not be.
Right. So
You need someone to drive your truck, I'll be busy. Next Tuesday, you can help me with.
So guys, just so you understand what's going on here. Well, me and Karen have been in contact with Randy, the moderator for the town meeting. It's Randy's job. If he wants to postpone the meeting, it's up to Randy. So myself and Randy have been working with the town attorney. Randy's been presented with a letter explaining the purposes for the delay of the town meeting. The main purpose in order under law to delay a town meeting is the issue of COVID-19. And if we were to try to do a Saturday meeting, while we could do some articles, we wouldn't be able to do the budget articles, and that would result in 2 town meetings. You don't want to have 2 town meetings because that gives you bigger exposure to COVID-19. So that's the legal reason for the postponement of the meeting, is not to have 2 town meetings. But also, as part of that description, also talks about the fact that the school committee, in voting tonight, effectively leaves us no time to make the adjustments by Saturday. So, that the school committee making a change like this so close to the town meeting really throws everything into curve. Not only does it throw our budget into a curve, it also throws the question on the ballot into a curve as well. That's why the select board is going to be discussing that question and how to move forward election-wise on tomorrow night at a special select board meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, speak up so that you can hear it here, because you're right there, so. Go ahead.
It would seem to me to be probably as important as moving the town meeting to move the election, especially if the town meeting gets moved.
So Ed, we had a real lot of discussion about that, and frankly, at that point, you have to bring Anita in, the town clerk, because she effectively runs the election process. We had talked about making the election, moving the election to June 14th, which is a Monday. It creates all kinds of problems because this Monday, all the schools are effectively closed, which would allow us to use the schools for the election. If we were to try to move the election, you would have to move it till after June 22nd, when the schools are effectively no longer in session. The only really issue to the question
Elections.
or to the ballot question is the question itself, which obviously is no longer valid because the schools, let's say, cut 200, then in theory, the override would move from 500 to 300, right? So I think I'm going to be recommending to, and again, this is not definite because a lot's still in the work, but I think I'm going to be recommending to the Board of Selectmen that they make a public statement saying that the amount of the override is invalid now because it's going to change as a result of the school committee's action, and that we may have to call for a special election just to deal with the ballot question in the future. So that's my recommendation as of right now. I don't think it's going to change by tomorrow night, but I think that's the way we're going to have to deal with this issue. There's people who have already voted in the election already, early. Anita thinks it would be extremely difficult to move the day of the election. So I think it's really just going to, it's going to come down to this ballot question and how we deal with the ballot question.
So you're gonna recommend not to move the town election. And then we're gonna have a second election.
That could be possible, just a special election on the ballot question, but that's going to determine the actions from the actions we take over the next month to adjust this budget. So the problem here is we've told the public clearly that we need an override of 500,000. If the school committee only cuts 200,000, then in theory, we have a $300,000 deficit to deal with, right? So, that's the question we're going to work on over the next month, how we adjust the numbers and what that override. Is it still going to be 300? Can we do anything else over the next month? Can there be any other number changes from the state or something? I think that's going to kind of play itself out over the next month as we're developing a new budget.
Is there, I'm sure you've thought of this, is there any problem if on Monday's election, we hold it and the $500,000 override passes?
So let's talk about that, because there's two ways I thought of making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. One is to just make a public statement that the override, the numbers effectively incorrect now. That's one way. The second way is to say that in spite of the fact that the passing of the override allows the town to increase the levy capacity by an additional $500,000, that the Board of Selectmen would take the position that they would only use that levy capacity to the tune of 300,000. The problem with that is I'm not sure that the general public will buy that, of giving the town authority to levy 500, with the town Board of Selectmen saying, oh yeah, we have that authority, but we won't do it. We'll only do 300. I'm not sure that citizens would trust the town to do that or not. I think, again, this is my opinion as of right now, I think having the Board of Selectmen say, you know what, we're going to deem this number to be invalid for this Monday night, would help, in fact, give more trust to the Board of Selectmen that they're telling people not to do it, and that their intention is to see how this process plays out and to offer a lower override later. The total cost, according to Anita, would be about $6,000 for a new election. And it would have to be held after June 22nd and before July 1st, because that's when the schools are closed, so we can actually use the schools for the election process.
Where's the $6,000 gonna come from?
And we'll figure that out. That's not the end of the world. We could probably use COVID money because this is all occurring as a result of COVID. So I'm not worried about the $6,000. We can figure that out easily.
I got a question.
Go ahead. Come over here.
I'm good. I can speak louder.
Okay, go ahead.
At one point, I thought we had heard that you couldn't have two elections on the same, you can't have two override elections. Is there any truth to that? And we should ask legal counsel before we go down this path, because in years past, you couldn't have two override. Once you have an override, you're done on a subject. Is that true or false? Here's my question. That we
So-
didn't do that before.
So Darren, that's a very good question. And frankly, I would have to talk to Lauren about it tomorrow morning. You know, if we deem the override to be invalid because the number is wrong and ask people essentially to vote it down, is it still a valid override or not? That's a question I would have to work with Lauren Goldberg, the attorney. But frankly, thank you for bringing it up because I think it is a good question.
Well, my interpretation of it, Ron, is that if the townspeople, the electorate act on an override, that's permanent. You can't do it twice. So we gotta be careful the next 24 hours to have the factual information so that we don't go down a path that we can't recover from.
No, that's a very good point. So first thing in the morning, I'll have that conversation with Lauren. Because I'm obviously gonna have time before I make my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night. So I can get that answered first thing in the morning and we'll be prepared for making that or answering that question for the Selectmen tomorrow night.
Does
Thank you,
Anita-
'cause it is a good
Anita
point.
chime in?
Say it again.
Can Anita chime in? Anita, do you have any opinion on this?
I know what you're talking about, Darren, because I've heard that in the past, but I think that this case might be different, and I agree with Ron. I think we need a legal opinion on it. The other thing that I want to say about moving the election is that I'm worried that, I mean, I understand the ballot question issue, but I'm really worried that we're doing a disservice to the 10 or so people that are all in contested races and just pushing off basically what could be a change of government on 3 different boards. So I think we need to take that into consideration too, but.
Well, that's another reason to push off the election, for the simple reason that some of those boards could change and they all have horses in the race of the town meeting.
Yeah, I think this though, I think truthfully, and I said it to you, Karen, and I'm, you know, again, it's only my opinion. But I think that the really major players as it results in developing the town meeting is the Finance Committee in this case, not so much the Board of Selectmen. Well, they play a role, as me and you have discussed numerous times, the recommendations come from the Finance Committee. So I'm not overly worried about a change in 1 or 2 selectmen. I think that, you know, for whatever nature, I think it really is going to be a Finance Committee question.
So for all of those people that have already voted, we're now telling them, whoops, we didn't really mean it
What?
for the override?
But I think we can clearly say we meant it. You know, let's face it, none of us expected the school committee to go 2 days before the town meeting and all of a sudden change the, you know, have an impact on the entire budget. So clearly we meant it, and we're gonna have to express, when we express whatever position the selectmen take in the override, that this is a result of, you know, what the school committee did 2 days before the 2 days before the special election and 4 days before the 2 days before the town meeting and 4 days before the election. I mean, none of us contemplated that they would do that to us with a short period of time.
Okay, I just want to take a brief hiatus off of this conversation while Tamika's still here. I want us to go over the minutes of the April 27th meeting while she's here so that she can hear this discussion.
Hey, Karen, before you do that, just let me make one comment, because I know nobody's on here as I'm looking at this group, but I had invited the Capital Improvement Committee members to come here. That debate and that question, at least in my mind, is invalid at this time as a result of what the school committee is going to do tonight. This giving us, if we do move town meeting, it gives us a month. Me and Karen have been talking a lot about potentially.
Ron, I sent a note to the CIPC and explained that.
Okay,
So,
good. But
yeah.
to the board, we're going to be looking closer at the American.
Okay,
act.
that's fine. Let's,
next stage.
I gotta get Tamika what
Yeah,
she needs.
do what you gotta
That's
do.
important.
Yep.
So, the minutes from April 27th.
I make a motion that we, 27.
Okay, so Tamika, that was Pete that made the first motion? And Tommy made the second. Any changes? Okay, Tamika, I'm sorry to say, on the second page, Ron isn't proposing to use 120,000 in free cash to fund one-time capital purchases. He's proposing to use the amount of free cash that is not necessary to balance the budget to fund one-time
Got it.
capital purchases.
Okay,
Because we can't give all the 120 back. It's only the piece that isn't needed if the override passes.
okay. Yep, I just found it and I'm gonna correct that right now.
Okay,
Motion?
Hmm?
Motion to do it.
Nope. okay. Any other changes? Okay, so we're all gonna take a roll call vote based upon the minutes with the changes. Okay, so, hold on a second. Tommy, can I just say it for you?
Aye.
Okay, Tommy says aye.
O'Malley, aye.
Pete says aye.
Purcell, aye.
Ross, aye.
And Narwhal, aye. It passes with the correction. Okay, so there we go. Thank you. I just wanted to get that squared away for Tamika because I know she has to go to a meeting, so. Okay. All right, so is there any other discussion on the moving of the town meeting or the, I would recommend that anyone who's interested attend the select board meeting tomorrow night because I think it's important that we voice our concerns.
Is that a virtual meeting?
It is.
We better have concrete movement, because we will get questioned if we have two override questions in the course of the same year or the same cycle.
So, you know,
We have to be concrete
so,
with that answer, and I think Ron's gonna get that, but we will get killed.
so Ron, I mean, yeah,
Go, sir.
I'm sorry. From your perspective, what you're saying is if we have an override, the results of that override stands. Even if we have to find someplace else, we might have to do it again, it's already too late. Whatever was voted on the first time, up or down, stands as it is.
That was my understanding.
And that's the risk.
And that's, Tommy, do you recollect the same
I
thing?
never heard that before, but he's the attorney to tell us yes or no. I still think you have to have a ballot vote and a town meeting vote. Because I always thought overrides were two hits.
We used to. Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. So, pretty much guys, just buckle up because we won't know anything until tomorrow. So my next,
Let's say the number is changed, but the meeting will not be moved. What do we need to do? When are we gonna do it? Do we have to meet Saturday morning?
So to be clear, Ed, I think, we've already met with the moderator. The expectation from the moderator in my discussion with him, that if in fact the number changes tonight, the meeting in fact will be moved. So I don't think that's really an option. Neither me or Karen or one have any desire to get up in front of town meeting and try to explain numbers that don't make sense anymore. So
for the town meeting, if there's a change. So,
As far as we're concerned with the budget and numbers, we're gonna be pushed up. Because even if the election is Monday night, nothing we can do about that. It's the town meeting that's gonna get moved, and that's what we gotta deal with.
right. Well, the good news is if, well,
I mean,
it's just 8 weeks of a lot of work that we just got to fling out the window right now.
well, I don't believe that, Karen. I'd say this to you. I think we can use the foundation of the work that we did, and
Ron,
effectively we got to just one night.
Ron, this group has gone through an awful lot of painstaking going through and making the hard cuts. That was something that would have been nice to not have had to go that deep.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, I don't think we have to do all the work over again. I think a lot of the work that this group has done can be utilized to come to the final budget. I don't think we throw everything away. I think it,
I'm not
you have to
saying that,
adjust for the
Ron.
192, yeah.
Oh, I have another question.
Okay.
Listen, just to be point blank, I thought this was gonna be over. I was looking forward to Saturday having this off my plate and not having to deal with it. So I'm not looking for another month of discussion about this either. So I get your position.
I guess my question, and I don't know the answer to this one, it's just I'm thinking outside the box here. If the override was to pass and we only needed 300,000 of it, can we do that?
Yes, the override increases the amount of tax levy that the town could use, but the Board of Selectmen could, and you guys all together could only use 300 of it or 200 or whatever we wanted to do. Just because we have extra tax levy doesn't mean we have to use it.
But doesn't the extra tax levy mean that we're adjusting the tax rate? I mean, as a,
We only adjust to whatever you need for the taxation.
So
The tax rate will only be based on whatever is the budget.
And we don't set our tax rate until the fall anyway.
Tommy, we vote on 500,000. We would, if say we came up with, we needed 300,000, right? The tax levy would shift by 300,000.
The balance of, Darren, the balance of the tax levy, let's assume we only taxed at 300,000. That balance of the levy could be used next year. It's unused tax levy that we could use in the year, next year or the year after. So once they give it to you as farm override, the town gets to keep that capacity, but doesn't mean they have to use it in any given year.
Well, do we have to take that whole capacity is what my question is. Could we adjust the capacity back to 300,000 and not put the capacity or the tax up?
Yeah. There is a process to do that. I think it's called an underride, but that would be at the next election and stuff. If you wanted to lower the ability to increase the levy, I think they call it an underride, but it's rarely ever done.
Okay.
I guess where I'm going in.
From what he just said, if it stays there and that can be used, there's no way. Who would ever say yes?
Well, where I'm going with this is, yeah, it's 500,000.
It's $500,000.
Regardless.
Although they might only use 300, they still have the 200 that they could use at any time.
It's gonna be on everybody's tax bill of 500,000.
No, only up to the 300.
Only up to the 300 that they use now, but the 200 remains open so that at any time, that 200 could be used. The problem comes in where now that means for however long we don't need that 200,000, that override stays available to be used.
Correct.
Taxes are only based off of that 300.
Right, yes.
Okay,
Right.
all right, I understand, okay. Thank you. That could be tricky too.
Oh, yeah.
well, on the other side, it might give us an opportunity going into next year. Because of the tax, if the override is there, our priority to be able to raise taxes.
The school knows it's there.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
yeah, that's exactly what will
Can I ask a
happen.
question of Anita?
Certainly, you can ask Anita a question.
So I
Anita,
just,
this is Ted. I have a question for you. Do you know how many days prior to an election, a 2.5 override has to be written, approved, et cetera?
yeah, Anita gave us that date. I don't know off the top of my head, but Anita can answer that question.
Yeah, I think it's at least 45 days because we have to have time to get it to like the printer and have the ballots available for absentee voters. So at least the 45.
We don't have that, do we?
It's only May 5th, so we could schedule another one. It's only going to cost us another $6,000 plus the cost, Don't worry about it.
Hey, guys, if you want some perspective on this, I'll tell you what's going on.
Right, we could pull it off.
You want some perspective on this, I'll tell you what's going on. I had a conversation with Peter, the town manager of Holden. Holden, if they do an override, the Holden Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee and the town manager are gonna ask for a higher override than they actually need. And the purpose of that is they know next year that the school committee is gonna be coming back asking for another increase, and they don't want to have to keep coming back for override after override. So it really is a mentality of your community.
That's.
Really is a mentality of your community. I asked him if that could be, if the town would vote to support that, and he said maybe. So,
But they're
is there a
not
reason to
doing,
do it?
but they're not doing an override, Ron.
Now, they're planning on doing one next year if this is what they're
Right,
thinking.
but
But
they
they're gonna ask
haven't
for a
done,
higher
they
override
didn't do
than
one
they
this
need.
year.
I mean, the people that I talked to do not like the fund.
Okay,
So,
so,
Karen, can I make one more comment? Because I'm gonna leave, but can I make one more comment? So guys, the interesting thing about this, and if you look at the narrative I sent you, what the school gave us, is that the school's plan is to use a whole bunch of one-time revenues to balance their budget. These grants, the ESSER money, they're all one-time revenues. So, even these numbers, if they lower the assessment to these lower numbers, I'm not sure we would still want to in any way vote for their budget, because all they're doing is setting up for a bigger problem next year by using one-time revenues to balance their budget. So, this thing is not going away. And I think that at town meeting, whenever the town meeting is, we need to raise that issue that they're using one-time revenues and they're just kicking this can down the road, and it's going to be even worse in the future. At some point, the school committee has to make tough decisions, and they seem completely unwilling to do that.
Well, here's our point, we've all debated this 400,000 and now we debate 900,000. Next year, we're gonna be back worse, right? I mean, it's gotta recorrect. We're dead.
Aaron, that's exactly my point. Them fixing this by using one-time revenues just kicks it down the road, and next year will be, you say they're right, they'll be asking for $1 million. It's just insane.
yeah, well, we'll have plenty of time. If they do change it, we will have plenty of time to debate that and have those discussions, because we'll have a month,
Agreed.
okay?
Yep.
Okay,
Folks, I apologize. I'm going to leave to an RDIC meeting, but
Okay.
thank you, everybody. I know you're going to vote on a couple of issues just to get ready, just in case the school committee doesn't take any action tonight. Karen, thank you for letting me kind of spend some time in this in the beginning. And thank you for all the hard work you guys are doing. Have a great night.
you too.
Good night.
Okay,
So
So-
one question,
okay, go ahead.
why wouldn't we change the town meeting to the Saturday before the next possible election time? And then have it all right there, boom, bang, boom, done. Instead of going this, we're worried about time period. Why don't we go right? If it's the 23rd is the earliest they can do it, why wouldn't we do the town meeting a couple of days before on that Saturday? I'm just trying to think of what would we hurt by doing that.
We don't have the choice on
That's
moving
right.
the town election. The town election is up to the select board. They're meeting tomorrow night. Unfortunately, the decision to move the town meeting will be made before that. So, I mean, it's
a logical perspective.
It is, it makes sense. And we do elections when school is in session, because school is in session on the presidential election, and we do it, so.
Okay, yeah, your question before this, go on, it says the city of county present proposition 2.5 questions to the voters as many times during the year as it chooses.
On the same subject.
Just this question, 2.5
Well,
questions.
we're,
Okay,
We're
all right
on
then.
the same thing.
But
We're all on
let's-
the same, the 2.5 override is always
It's
on
always
the same
the same.
question, so raising the tax rate.
It's on finance. It's on
Right.
finance.
So- okay,
I still think it's worth looking into, because I remember hearing.
We heard that before. Somewhere I heard it. Not, now that thing definitely says something different, but
I think the town clerk's supposed to have it 35 days and get.
okay. So, okay. I would recommend, again, all of us attend the select board meeting tomorrow night and let our concerns be heard.
Do we have the meeting?
Right.
It's on the town website.
Okay.
Yep, that's how I always go to that's how you get to them, because we're not guests, we are public. Okay, So this evening, there are 3 things that need to be adjusted on our budget that we have done. Our FinCom recommended budget has to be, there were some mathematical errors made. It's not important by whom, but anyway. Okay, so the first and foremost is we had $321,000-ish in education as the decrease. Actually, 356,850. And that is because the original assessment was 14,195,175. And when they did their first revision, it was down to 13,838,325, which is the 356,850. Okay. The second one that has to be made is,
That gives us more money.
it does. Health insurance. We took the moving it, taking it to the deductible. What we didn't get was the 1-month premium holiday. So instead of being 66 something, it's now 83,664. Okay. And
Is that a decrease?
it's a decrease.
So that's more money.
It's more money for us. It went from 66 to 83. Nope, it's a good thing. Okay, and then the only other thing is just purely formatting. We had all the list at the bottom, after the spreadsheet of all the places that unemployment was going to go. We need to add the 56,843.14 to the transfers to trust unemployment line in the budget. Okay, so
So that's gonna go up into the spreadsheet.
up into the spreadsheet instead of below. Okay, so that being said, does everyone accept those changes?
You need a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept the adjustments to the budget that we just documented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
There we go. I love it.
Okay, so now we're gonna take yes, we can have any discussion. That's the next thing I was gonna ask, any discussion, so go ahead.
So that was 20 something, vicinity of $45,000.
It's a little bit more. Let's vote on this piece and then I have that, what you're gonna ask next. That's the next motion I'll bring up, so. So if we, do we all accept, so if we can move on these changes and then go on to what I know you're going to.
So we're basically saying, this is the spreadsheet we're gonna put in front of the voters.
If the school doesn't change,
Correct.
okay? Any other questions on those changes? Okay, so we'll take a roll call vote. Tommy,
Aye.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Ted,
Purcell, aye.
Darren,
Ross, aye.
Narwhal, aye. Okay, so now go ahead and ask your next question in the form of a motion. Or just ask. It's 56,426.
What are we doing with it?
Okay, so here's,
Do we need to make a motion at this point to? how
Okay.
That's gonna be.
well, so let's assume that Saturday is our town meeting and no other changes get made. Our recommended budget would say that there's 56,426 that we have extra. So I would like to do the same thing that we were doing with the other money, if the 500,000, where we put it back into free cash. Because that way we could use it to fund any shortfalls. And when you budget this tight, there's always a shortfall. All it's gonna take is 2 people in the town to have to take a family policy on our health insurance, and we have a shortfall. And we've already, in this budget, we've already cut our reserve fund to, we took 10,334 out of it, so. So our choices are to say specifically where to spend that money, or say to take less free cash to fund the budget.
And I'm more inclined to say, let's not
So
cut
instead,
our nose off to spite our face.
so instead of using 120,
Is there anything more positive or negative to putting it back in reserve?
what reserve? Oh, you mean our reserve?
Yeah.
Well, we can't,
Free cash or reserve, or can we even do that?
yeah, we could fund, we could then take the cut that we did for the 10, put that back in, and then that would only leave 46 to go into free cash.
I think when
Well, our reserve fund is something that the finance committee can use to help defray shortfalls as well.
I think we're going to need it. So we'll be there. And once we get to the point where we start talking about what happens with school adjustment, you know, the priorities there.
Well, here's the thing, if it's in, if we leave it in free cash, we will not be able to use it once the fiscal year closes until it's certified. And it usually doesn't get certified until November. If we were to put the $10,000 back into that we've cut from our reserve fund, we would have $25,000 there that we could use without having to go to town meeting. Free cash you need to use only through town meeting. So anybody have,
Reserve.
Yeah, I might be inclined to bolster that back up a little bit and the
Okay.
rest into free cash.
okay, any other discussion? Okay, so what's the pleasure? Do we want to put it, so I need to hear from everybody what they want to do.
So the idea would be we bring the reserve back up to 25,000. Motion would be that we bring the reserve back up to 25,000 as it was.
Yep.
And the difference then will be put back into free cash.
Okay, so a motion has been made.
Second.
Tommy seconded it. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Tommy? Rashala, aye.
O'Malley, aye?
Okay, Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Ross, I.
Narwhal, aye. Okay, so I am now putting the 10,334 back into reserve. I've got it right here. That's what I'm doing. Don't worry. You guys are getting this all this evening, right before we finish anything. This will all be, and I'm highlighting them all in this orange color so that we'll know what changes we made this evening. And I've changed the date so that we'll know when it was, all that stuff. Okay, so now that means we have 35,758 less that we will need from free cash to balance the budget. Okay, that's for the FinCom if the override doesn't pass. Okay, so, all right, so now guys, the next thing to discuss is, so the school decides to make these cuts this evening. When do we want to meet? Do we want to continue to meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Is there a better date for people? Because for the next foreseeable future, we're going to have some meetings.
Well, I think we reserve Tuesdays and Thursdays plan for those days because it's still going to take a lot of work.
Is that still going to be okay?
Yeah, more than likely. I got a deeper question.
Okay.
I heard that a couple of people might not be on the finance committee anymore, and
Finance committee's terms do not run out until such time as town meeting occurs.
So, yeah.
Yep. So no one gets off scot-free because the term doesn't end until the town meeting.
So I know David's a little disappointed. But
oh, you'll get over it.
Yeah.
I'll take them out fishing. Okay.
there you go.
So, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we got a long road ahead of us again.
Yeah.
We do. We do.
It's not gonna be easy all over. It's gonna be almost not starting over, but we almost have to.
Well, now we're going to prioritize which ones of the cuts are more beneficial to the town to put back in, because it can't be all of them. So it's only part of them.
We prioritize.
Yep, we're going to have to do that. So,
That's fine.
so I will send a note to Tamika and see if she can get us posted for next Tuesday. I'll let you guys know as soon as she lets me know.
Okay.
She should have no problem, because that should be enough time. So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 o'clock.
And the thing is that we're gonna run, after this gets done, aren't we gonna be facing the fall special town?
Are you trying to push us all into deep depression, Pete?
I'm just saying.
No. The good news is we won't, because after this, we will go straight into line item transfers and all of that. So, right. So, okay, is there any other?
How can we have a little bit of, we gotta discuss how we're gonna prioritize. So we have a little bit of for next Tuesday.
Mhm.
I'd like to have an idea what we're thinking of a direction, so that we can all head off in our little, if we have time on our own to figure this out.
Right,
So,
I agree.
What are we as a group thinking priorities at? People?
That's always my thing, because that brings about services, but that's where my head is. That doesn't mean that it's right. It's just where my head goes.
And I would go with that. I would say each position that was taken out in our cuts, if the money is there, it goes back. And then in salaries, I mean, if there's people are, we want to keep people around. Once we keep the people here, I mean, if we're taking salary out, I think we put that stuff back.
Do we have, so we got down to that number that was like 600,000 something, and that's when it was put on the table, cuts after this are the devastating ones.
Mhm.
And then we made cuts to people, we made cuts to raises, we made cuts to various different things.
Mhm.
Do we have a catalog of like what the dollar number was for the people cuts?
It's in the spreadsheets, right?
The best,
Easily accessible?
yes, the summary of the impact statements.
That number looks something like $190,000.
The summary of the impact statements let you know exactly who we cut. So that would be where I would go, is the summary of the impact statements.
But is the summary of the impact station correct based on what we took for a vote a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes, because those cuts are still there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other discussion?
On this subject or any subject.
Any subject,
So does the
Finance Committee related.
Does the chairperson have any announcements to make?
She does.
Would she like to do that?
Not really, but that's all right. I will be reappointed for 2 years.
Could you?
No.
Louder.
No, because I've already taken enough crap from my family. So I sent everyone the budget that we voted on tonight. So you guys will have it. You guys can look at it. We can see. And then it's just hurry up and wait to see what's going to happen tonight. And hurry up and wait to see what's going to happen with the town meeting. Hurry up and wait to see what's going to happen with the town election.
So my only concern is last year, when we were getting the budget from the school, they were telling us, you know, going back to sharpening pencils and oh boy, is this gonna be hard, and et cetera. And then when they came back to us, they came back with $24,000. It was pennies.
Yep.
And now they're talking a big number again. I guess, I don't want to say I don't trust them, but I am skeptical until I, you know, maybe Downey Thomas, but until I see it. Anyway, my opinion.
What do you mean, the vote tonight? Is that pretty much what you're getting at?
Yeah.
I mean, as I read, I briefly read, and I may not have even had my glasses on at the time, the note that Ron sent the budget justification that Daryl shared out with them. Someone I think brought this up earlier, maybe you. It looks like they may be eyeing some one-time money and
There. It's E and
playing
D.
a little roulette with that.
Yeah, it's E and D and ESSER funds is what they're planning on using to get to these numbers.
The only, Commissioner Street.
Sure, go ahead. Really?
The only
I'll throw
people that
something
play
at
in the Russian roulette with is us, Ted. They're gonna be fine. We're gonna be the ones that are gonna pay the piper next year again. This is,
Yeah,
you know what, you're 100% right, but there's no risk for them.
So when does the agreement with the 5 towns in the school district come to an end? No, it has to be renegotiated,
I
right?
think that somebody said it was started soon.
All right, and that's exactly the point. that
The
I'm making.
district agreement is being reviewed now.
Okay, so
yeah, there was a meeting we could go to a few nights ago, but I don't think the
wouldn't it be reasonable for someone to suggest that as much as the municipal budgets need to be able to be funded based upon town property values, shouldn't the school be of the same requirement? Now, and I'm not saying that, you know, they have to be a 2.5 kind of thing perspective, specifically. But if the school budget is 60% of the total budget, shouldn't they have to present a budget that is balanced to that 60%? I mean, I don't know that they're required to, but shouldn't the agreement be stated to say, if it's 60-40 and we have revenues of this, you need to be able to meet 60% of that.
Those discussions have been had when Margaret was here. Margaret would go to the town administrator meeting with the school staff, with the school administration. And she suggested everyone bring their new growth number in and say you can have, if it was 58 or 60 or whatever, you could have that. And, you know, and then this way it would still leave some for the town, and it didn't come to fruition.
Well, how do you do that? And I'm not sure that, I'm not saying that how does the finance committee do it?
No, I know that Mitch Rossetti, who is the chair of the select board, is attending those meetings. I would recommend reaching out to him and having conversations with him and letting your thoughts be known.
Okay.
That's what Ron said a few meetings ago, there were several meetings, he said it. We need to go to the selectmen and say, okay, we want to end our agreement with what you said.
Right.
We want to end this agreement and then negotiate a new one. That's what we got to do.
Right, and that, you know, it happens periodically.
It's under review now. That's all I know is it's under review now. And then from there, Mitch has been going to the meeting. So I would say reach out to him, have the conversations with him. Okay. So any other discussions?
what essentially will our agenda be next Tuesday, assuming there's no town meeting Saturday?
It will all depend if there's no town meeting and no election, or if there'll be no town meeting and an election. Ultimately, it's going to be adjustments to the budget
Yeah, and what you said does.
Right,
with what Wachusett does and what the townsfolk do.
Right.
Because it just all depends upon what gets decided. Right now, we're really treading water, sinking fast.
exactly.
Yeah, we have no authority to put out an override, so that's gonna be somebody else's decision.
So the last thing I'd like to bring up is that tomorrow, I would like the Finance Committee to be in support of, if the school changes the number tonight, I would like to be able to reach out and have the impact statements and your presentation taken down, because those numbers no longer are accurate.
Agreed. What do you need from us to do?
I just would like, I'd like a motion for that, so I mean,
So moved.
okay, so Tommy moved the motion, okay?
O'Malley second.
Okay, any other discussion? I just don't want it out there that we're saying that this is gonna be this way and it's not gonna be that way.
Agreed.
So any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Tommy,
Rochelle, Ryan.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Ted,
Purcell, aye.
Darren,
Ross, I.
and Narwhal, I unanimous.
It is really cool.
My face.
It is, it's like this great aura.
My dad's shy.
Oh, maybe.
Um,
Go ahead. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Or we can next Tuesday.
yeah, at least one. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Tommy,
Rochelle, Ryan.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Ted,
Purcell,
Darren,
Ross, I.
Narwhal, I unanimous to adjourn. Thank you. Have a nice evening.